So I want to share this little tip about how I'm able to accomplish big things, or at least to me, they're big things. Things like losing 80 pounds or getting monetized on a YouTube channel in only a few months. And whatever other big goals I might set for myself, I want to share how I go about that and what my little secret is. If you're interested, it's going to take me a little bit of a minute to get to the point, but I'm currently on this trip, which is just kind of reminding me of what it is that I do on a regular basis that I think could be helpful to you, and a good reminder to myself whenever I have big goals set in my mind. So let me tell you about what I'm doing right now that will have a point in the end. So right now I'm doing what would be called an annual tradition of going to the mall like an hour away to pick up my new iPhone on the day that it's released. So just so you know, I really like technology, especially when it's Apple technology. I don't know what it is. Ever since I got my very first iPhone, I've loved Apple. I'd never wanted to get an Android. I've already learned enough about Apple, and it would be such a transition to go from when I started with the 3G back in like 2007 to now have to maybe switch to Android. I'm not even gonna give it a shot. And then like 5 years ago, I got my first Mac, and it's just all been Apple ever since. So I follow them, to say the least. So every year I get pretty excited about the new releases. I get excited about the new iOS updates. I'll watch video after video about each iOS update to see like if there's some new feature that I didn't see in the video before. It's like an addiction. Anyways, on to the story. Today, I'm going to get my new iPhone. And the way that we organize this or structure this in the family is, because I like getting the new iPhone every year, I'll get the new iPhone. My wife, she doesn't really care that much about the technology, but she does want to stay up to date. She doesn't want her phone to be slow and things like that. So I'll give her last year's iPhone, the one that I'm upgrading from. I'll give her that phone. And then we'll continue the whole hand-me-down process from my wife to my daughter, and then from my daughter to my son. And then my son's phone is the one that we'll trade in. This year, I think, all right, so I'm currently at the iPhone 15. My son's at the 12. And so we're trading in the iPhone 12. And Apple's giving us a couple $100. And then I just get the iPhone Pro version. And like I said, this is something that we do every year, at least for quite a few years now. And this isn't something we just do all spur of the moment and with no planning involved. We own all of our iPhones outright. We don't owe any debt to any phone service. We don't owe any debt to Apple. We pay cash for these phones. Well, actually, I use the Apple credit card so that I can get the 3% cash back, but then I pay it off the very next month because the money's already there. And that's the thing that I really want to talk about here. I'm not rich, and I don't just have thousands of dollars just sitting around just any given time to just go willy-nilly and go get an iPhone. We are intentional with our planning all year long for this one moment, right? There's other things that we do throughout the year. It's not just the iPhone that we focus all of our life on, but because we have this one thing, or at least I do, have this one thing that I want, we plan this out. So every paycheck, we set aside about $30. And since we get paid every 2 weeks, that turns out to be about $1,000 a year. We take that money, we put it into a savings account, and currently I've been using like a Capital One or like an online banking, and that usually has a pretty high interest rate for at least a savings account anyways. I think I'm getting like 4.3% interest on this account, so that's pretty good. There's one more little break that I get through Apple, and that's because I'm a military veteran. They give me a 10% off, so that's really cool. So this $1,000 phone turns into more like a $900 phone. Then we do the trade-in for a couple $100, and that puts us for roughly around $700 for the phones. Fingers crossed Apple doesn't raise their prices anytime soon. So that extra money that's left over has a plan as well, because we still need iPhone cases, because everybody wants their own case. They don't want to deal with, you know, my son doesn't want the girly case that my daughter and my wife had, and they don't really want the case that I had. So it's all relative. So it turns into an experience for them as well. If there is any money left over in that bank account, I take half of that money and I put it into our family vacation fund, and then I keep that other half there for next year to help with the initial seed for saving for next year's iPhone. So I tell you that whole story and that whole plan to point out that very little action is taken all year long. Because I'm able to just set $30 aside every 2 weeks over the span of 26 paychecks, at the end of the year, I'm able to just buy the iPhone and all the accessories that the family needs for all these device switches. In addition to that, because I've been doing it for so long, not just 1 year, all these phones are now paid for. If for some reason the phone carrier that I'm using got me upset, I could just switch to a different carrier because I'm not tied to them in any way. I don't have any contract. There's no debt that I owe them for my phone. Even if I did have a debt, I would have it to Apple. That way I could still switch between carriers. That's just a fun tip. Now, how does this apply to the rest of our life? Like I said at the beginning, what's my secret to losing weight and having big impact in my life? Like, what is it? And while I'm driving and thinking about, like, golly, we spent a lot of time just saving and planning and all that stuff. How does that relate to everything else in my life, or at least everything that I've found success with? But when it came to my diet and losing 80 pounds, it wasn't that all of a sudden I went out and worked out and lost 80 pounds one day. It didn't happen overnight. It was something that I had to plan for and I had to be intentional with. And it took incremental small successes that led to overall a big success. You figure over the span of a year, if I ate 3 times a day, that's roughly 1,000 times that I had to make a correct decision to either decide to eat the right food or just not eat at all, or whatever the decision was when it came to the diet. It took 1,000 decisions to finally lose 80 pounds. And every time you make that right decision, it's like you just put another $30 in the bank. It's like at the end of the month when you got that little bit of interest and it's stacked up on top of the $30 that you put in the bank. Every little bit counts because the goal that we're reaching for is really big and has to be done incrementally. The same for this YouTube channel. I was not able to just overnight gain 1,000 subscribers. I mean, there are people that do it all the time. They put out one video, they find like some astronomical success because either they're a genius or they got really lucky. I don't know. I don't know. I have a background in marketing and sales and digital stuff, and I don't know. I don't know what they do. Anyways, but what I found for my success is that if I just put out a video that's valuable to somebody, if 100 people watch it and 2 or 3 people get all the way through the video and they find success and they're motivated to go out and do something in their life, 1, I feel like I've been able to provide some value to somebody, but 2, one more person subscribed, and then I put out another video and another person subscribes. Luckily, I haven't had to put out 1,000 videos and with 1 subscriber per video, but I know when I first started, I made a big commitment, and it wasn't to, I'm gonna get 1,000 subscribers, because I have no control over whether or not somebody subscribes. My goal was, I'm gonna put out content. I'm gonna put out 100 videos. If I put out 100 videos and I still feel like I'm not able to do it, then I'll quit. Well, I didn't have to put out 100 videos. We reached that monetization goal. Now we're on to the next goal, and we're gonna do it incrementally. We're gonna do 1 right decision, 1 small task at a time. I know for some people it's really hard. I know for me it's really hard to stay on track and put out a video every day for a month, or to make a video each week, sit down and edit the video. I don't know what's wrong with my mind, but sometimes it's really hard for me to focus. Sometimes I don't feel like doing the little tedious things, but some people struggle with other things. Like, for example, drugs and alcohol. I relate that kind of to my diet because it's more of an addiction that I have to fight my mind with. But for somebody that struggles with that kind of stuff, it's 1 day at a time. You have to keep making the right decision. As insignificant as it might seem, you have to make the right decision over and over and over again. And you'll look back and you'll see there's been a big change, even though it just feels so small and incremental. Think about the iPhone. Let's go back to the iPhone. Let's go full circle and think about the iPhone again. if you ever look back, I mean, I'm upgrading this year to the iPhone 16 Pro, and it's really not that much different than the iPhone 15 Pro. And the 15 Pro wasn't that much different than the 14 Pro, and so on and so forth, until you get all the way back to the original iPhone, and you're like, you look back and it's like, whoa, there's a huge difference. But that's because every year there's this incremental change. So Apple's doing the same thing as I'm doing. Look at me and Apple being like the same people. No wonder I like Apple so much. They get me. I'm really hoping this audio turned out all right. I'm driving my Dodge Charger with like loud exhaust out here on the highway, and I feel like it's gonna be pretty loud, but we'll see. With all that being said, I want to really just give you some encouragement and tell you that if you put your head down and you really give the effort and you stay consistent day in and day out, putting in the work, whatever your goals are, I believe you're going to reach them. Just don't give up and keep making that incremental improvement, that incremental step. Just keep going down that path. You got it. And hey, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd love your follow and subscription. But if you really like this video, I got another video for you that you might like, where I talk about why I haven't quit my job and gone full-time as a YouTuber yet. And you can find that video right here. So I'll see you in the next one.